Welcome back to the North Tonawanda Football Hall of Fame YouTube channel. I'm at Helinski. Got another great guest here today for you. This gentleman from California, great NT roots. His family has terrific NT roots as well, too. Please join me in welcoming 1998 NT Hall of Famer, Mark Siezega. C's, good to catch up with you. Look at this. Southern California, life is good. You got the Bass Pro Shop hat on. You know, just to honor you, I've got my own pork pie hat. So let's have a little bit of fun with this here today. What do you think?
Let's do it. Yeah. Honored to be here. Thank you very much for pursuing me and asking me to join you.
For people who are not aware of you, you graduated in the 1970s. You played for NT in the 1970s as well, too. You've been out in California for over 40 years now. You have, besides a terrific athletic career in football in NT, you also, you know, an accomplished musician, and also with your company as well, too. It's a rather unique company. But before we get into that, I want to talk to you about growing up in NT and how your athletic career began.
You know, I was fortunate to have such a wonderful father, Phil, who was inducted the first year into the Hall of Fame, and you know, an exceptional athlete. But he was a gym teacher, you know, for all those years in NT, then athletic director and assistant recreation director, you know, for the city. So I was always by his side at sporting events and always involved in some sort of free-form sport. And football just was kind of the sport I liked the most. You know, wasn't that good at baseball, wasn't that, you know, I was quick, okay at track, okay at wrestling, but football is what I really enjoyed. And I think it was probably his background, but he was great at every sport. Got me going in football. And, you know, didn't play the Pop Warner or anything, but started in ninth grade over at Resel with one of the greatest man ever, Frankie Burke, and Mr. Dermisic as well.
Listening to other people talk about this, your father wasn't a big fan of organized football before high school or junior high school. I mean, he wasn't a big fan of the Tyro system.
Actually, you know, you're right. You know, I guess that's why I didn't play. I remember, you know, and you bring it up now, I do remember I'm not pushing that on people. They're just saying that, you know, the kids were too young for a sport like that, and sometimes it burns them out. And you know, a lot of kids are smaller, and you know, I was a small kid too, so that kept me out of it. And I never had the urge to play that. And what I've kind of found with the Pop Warner leagues, and this could be true, could be false, but it always seemed like a lot of work and a lot of pushing, and the kids weren't having as much fun. And for me, sports were always about fun. And if I wasn't having fun, I wasn't going to do it. And when I started playing football in junior high, it was fun. The coaches made it fun. The teammates made it fun. And that helped people to engage and excel.
Your father was very revered in North Tonawanda, was a terrific athlete. I believe he played, it was during the World War II era, so years get a little bit skewed, but didn't he play at Bucknell at one point and then transferred to UB as well?
You know your facts. Yeah, he was Bucknell and UB, and then in high school, he played both ways. You know, every play of the game. He also kicked the extra points, kicked off, punted. I mean, he did it all. So, like I say, he was a tough act to follow, but it's just a gifted athlete and a real humble, kind man who would always put other people in front of him and always encourage people and always wanted to get kids involved. But his biggest thing with kids and being around kids was to have fun. And he engaged with kids. He got down at their level. So I think that's one of the main reasons that people enjoyed being around him and followed him. And you know, he affected them in that way.
Was it hard being Phil Siezega's kid growing up?
Not at all. it was a party. I mean, it was a playground. The only hard part about being Phil Siezega's kid growing up was if you got in trouble, everybody'd look at you and go, oh, you're Phil's kid, aren't you? You know, so I couldn't get away with anything. But no, it was a playground. In the winter, when it was 4 degrees outside, every Sunday morning, I'd gather a group of my best buddies and we'd go over to Payne Junior High and swim for 3 hours and on Sunday mornings and play anything we wanted in the gym. So we were so blessed to have that. Nobody else could do that. So we would do that every Sunday morning. He'd read the newspaper, work out a little bit, run his laps, and we'd be there for hours and hours. And then, I grew up at Moh Pool. I remember being at Moh Pool 4 years old. I lived in the guardhouse basically. From 4 to about 23 was at the pool because I had all those wonderful years working there with Frankie Burke and other teammates, like Fronczak, Franz and Stanley and Laper and life. I've experienced some wonderful things. The life has been great. It was great being Phil Siezega's kid.
Did your father push you towards athletics, or did he let you do your own thing and find your own way?
Totally let me find my own way. He was never a pressure guy. He'd encourage, always encourage, never cut you down. Always, and he was like that with everyone. Always find the best parts of people and press those buttons and encourage those buttons. Never cut people down, never criticize. And through that upbringing, I was able to, embrace what I did and try things and have fun with it. And again, I keep going back to being Phil Siezega's kid was all about having fun and enjoying the moment. So yes, it was great being Phil Siezega's sidekick.
Freshman football and JV football and varsity football. Take me through those times.
We started out over at Resel. I think we were the first class at Resel. Had people like Franz, Glenn Lorian. I'm trying to remember names, but we didn't have a field then, so we had to jog from the high school over to, I think it was Ohio School there, the grade school, and we practice over there and take the equipment down with us, take it back. But Frankie Burke was very much like my father. So my mentors were Frankie Burke and my father. And so I was blessed to be around those people and the influence they had on me and the encouragement they had on me. And, we weren't the best teams, but we had fun and we had a great group of kids, young men, 7th, 8th grade or 9th graders, whatever we were, that really learned about life and teamwork and respect and working together and setting goals. And it was more about that and being good people than about winning. So in freshman, it was a lot of fun. I think JV year, that was even more fun. We won a little bit more, but we had a great group of that's where Payne and Resel teams got to get together. And we all had friends over at Payne, even though we were at Resel. So when we all got together, that was even more fun. Then we had some of the, juniors that were on the JV teams. So it was a better team football wise, but a great time. And Anastasi was our coach back then. We had fun. And then the next couple of years, those are interesting years because I liked how you said graduated in the 70s because high school for me was like the best 6 years of my life. In reality, I should have graduated with 72, but I was a really young when I started kindergarten. So that made me young in school, and I was struggling. So in 8th grade, my parents held me back. So that took me out of the 72 class. I was with, that was Russ Kish and I think Pat Campbell and those guys. So I knew those guys for those couple years, and then when I dropped back a grade, that's my real class. That's Franz and Al Ridge and, Timmy Duerr, Jeff Shear, those guys, Roy Eichler, Ken Scripp, Chet Weech. That was really my graduating year. But I had interesting circumstances. I wanted to go on to college and get a college scholarship. That was my thing. I just wanted to play in college. And I got my knee screwed up in the Mohr Parks and Recreation summer softball game. And it kept me out a year. I couldn't play, which would have been my junior year. So we decided the way to do it was, when I actually was a senior in 73, was for me to post-grad and come back the following semester and get that year of eligibility back. And that way I'd get the college scholarship. So that's what we went for. I was supposed to graduate in 73. 3 days before graduation, I dropped the required health class you needed to graduate. So I had to come back in the fall to take health. I think I took wood shop, bachelor living, forest. They put me in advanced chemistry for some reason. And I remember walking into the class and I said, I'm not supposed to be here and I won't be here tomorrow. This is not why I'm in school this semester. And so I was able to drop that class and, played that 73 semester and then graduated early, actually in January. So I was 72, 73, 74.
And getting back to how big were you when you played? You're not a big man. You've never been a big man, and probably pound for pound. People have said you're probably the hardest hitter pound for pound in NT's history.
Well, and that was the problem. That's why I ended up after all that deciding I didn't want to play anymore because I was too small and I was always getting hurt. I think the most I ever weighed beginning of the season was 140 pounds. Usually midway through season, I was 130 pounds. But I did like to hit people. And the game was different then. You could lead with your head, got a few concussions. And you could go below the knees. And that's basically what I would do. If somebody big is coming, I'd just go for their ankles and try to chop the tree down. And that worked. But you can't do that in sports anymore because it's too dangerous. But I was able to do that instead of hitting the big guys square in the middle, which really saved me quite a bit. But Frankie Burke, such a wonderful man. We had a Mohr Christmas party the year I had after the season where I had to sit out. And when I was leaving the party, he looked at me and he said, so be ready tomorrow morning. I'm picking up 7 a.m. and we're going to work out. I was like, wait, what? He goes, just be ready. So he picked me up and I became his workout buddy. And what we would do is, NT didn't have a universal gym, really didn't have much of a weight room at the time. So Frankie and I would drive up to Buffalo. We'd sneak into the weight room at Buff State and we work out for 3 hours together. And we do that Monday through Friday, at least 5 days a week. And we became really close and he really whipped me into shape. And I put on a lot of muscle. I put on not much more weight, but what I had turned into muscle. And I worked out with him for the next several years and looking for different places to work out because Buff State caught on to us. They kicked us out. Then we went to the Jewish Center. We were there for a few months till they kicked us out. Then we went to UP for a little bit. They kicked us out. Then we start to do the cycle again. And then Frank got with my dad, and together they got the first universal weight machine set up the weight training facility at NTHS. So that's how that came about. But yeah, so I worked out with Frankie for several years. He got me strong, so I wasn't getting hurt. I like to hit people. I could do it pretty effectively. And that was how I succeeded.
Your defensive coordinator, I believe, was Chuck Williams at that point, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And who were some of your high school coaches that you remember of and can share some thoughts about them?
Mr. Williams is great. He was, he loved defense, and he loved, finesse and aggressive defensive, about hitting people and working together as a team. And then Chuck Ramsey was the head coach, and Mr. Ramsey was just the nicest guy, and it taught us a lot and led us really well. So I had some good coaches, and like I say, Anastasi was along the way. Trying to remember who the other coaches were. I apologize, but yeah, we had good coaches, and we had some great players. We had, Ken Script. That guy was like a gazelle, and I would block for him most often. I was like a wing back or the second half back, and I was a much better blocker than I was a runner. That's an offense. Yeah, because you could go low again. I didn't mind taking the big guys down because I could take them out low, and Script could go around. And then we had Franz. I mean, if Franz was a fullback, he was so powerful. He had legs like tree trunks. Franz was a great blocker in a bowl as a ball carrier. Franz never got his due recognition, but Franz was a great football player. But the offense, the slot back, wing back, then defense, they kind of flipped me around. That's where I thought I did the best, was defense. They'd flip me between safety, corners, and sometimes linebackers. I remember at one point they had Chet Weech and I being middle linebackers, and we both were pretty small, but we were both pretty quick, and that seemed to work quite well. And they often just change up the defenses week by week, depending on who the receivers were for the competition. I generally go from safety to the best receiver. If they had an outstanding receiver, that's I get assigned. Other times, safety playing center field, that allowed me to get a lot of interceptions. I was lucky that I never had a touchdown pass caught on me. So that's one of the things I was kind of proud of.
Well, that's why you became all Western New York at that point, because you were the shutdown defensive back, and nobody got behind you. What were your teams like back then? Were they competitive? Any good?
We were good. We weren't great, and some of the Ken West and Sweet Home, they had some real power players. We had some really good players too. And we had winning seasons. We never won a championship, but again, we had fun. And for me, and I don't know, maybe that was part of the problem. I wanted to win, but it wasn't the most important thing. It was more about team. It was more about enjoying what we're doing and enjoying this sport than putting too much pressure on not enjoying what you're doing based on the win-lose count. We had some very good teams. We had some really competitive players. And like I say, I got to play with a lot of some different age groups. I had Pat Campbell, I had Don Garrett I spent some time with. Then I had Lapes and Monasani and Stanley, Weech, Chet Weech was great, Ken Script, Petrus, Franz, Eichler. Then I had, the year I came back, Billy Janowski. Billy Janowski was so great. He's such a kind soul that, Billy and I basically glammed onto each other and did everything together that semester. That we ate lunch together, we worked out together. That Billy is just a gem of a person. I haven't talked to Billy probably in 50 years, but Billy ever watches it. What a wonderful young man he is, and I'm sure what a wonderful man he is now, that loved being around Billy and the calmness of Billy. But give him the ball and he would take off.
What was your TNT experiences like?
I think we won one. This is how they kind of that exchange kind of happened. I'll take with the biggest games, Payne Res. We tied that game, and I was so happy at the end. It's like, I know all you guys on Payne, and I really like all you guys, and we're all going to be playing together, for another 4 years, 3 years. That this is the way it should end. Yeah, I mean, we're friends. It's a great game. So that was a tie. I think one of the JV TNT game, I believe we won, the next 3 years that I played TNT games. I think we won one, lost one, tied one. In my final game, this is kind of ironic, with pouring rain, we get to the field, I run out on the field, and as I'm running, a raindrop hits my eye, and one of my contact lenses pop out. And so I think, oh, great, what am I going to do? I've got one lens. Then my other lens is bothering me, and I take it out, and the wind blows it away. So I've got no contact lenses, and I'm pretty blind. There's no cell phones. I didn't have my glasses with me. Luckily, my parents who were in the stands had a set of glasses. So we sent someone up. They found my parents, brought my glasses down. So I was able to, it was pouring rain. So you know what it's like in a mud game. So my glasses are just like looking through a bad windshield. And by the end of the game, the glasses were broke here, and one of the ends were broken off. They're all taped up. So that was my final game, but a fun game in the rain, a mud game, and I believe we tied that game. I have to look back. That would have been the game in '74. But they were always exciting. The luncheons and being around the guys and everybody getting pumped up for those games. But it's fun being with the team, leading the team, and like I say, there were some wonderful players in those teams and some wonderful people. I apologize if I'm lacking on some of their names right now.
When did you know you weren't going to go any further with your football career in college?
I think that was midway through my postgraduate year. I was playing with Billy Janowski. I remember I got a pretty bad concussion in one of the games, in a Wheatfield game. I also remember I was having hamstring problems, knee problems, and lower back problems throughout that season. And I kept thinking, all these guys are bigger than me now. What's going to happen next year or the year after if I do play in college? I'm not getting much bigger. I know that. And everybody else is getting bigger. This really isn't a good recipe, and where's it going to take me? So that was weighing heavily on me. And then my best friend Jamie Carlson, who I'd been in a band with since I was 12 years old, he had gone away to college, and I went to visit him to look at his school about playing football. And he said, well, if you're coming here to be around me, I just need to let you know I'm dropping out. I'm going back to Buffalo, and now I'm starting a serious rock band. We're not just going to do high schools and stuff. Now we're going to get real serious. I kind of looked at him and said, well, not without me, And then that was when I made the decision. Okay, and he said, well, you're going to play football. I go, you know what? I've been toying with that idea, and I think your idea makes a lot more sense. And that's what we did. Went back and we started the band and went from there.
Were your parents good with that, with your decision?
Yeah, they knew I was small. They knew I was getting hurt. They were always supportive no matter what I did. And, Mom never liked watching me get hurt and getting nursed around and going to see John Wachowski, throughout the week to get, physical therapy and stuff done with. So I think she was happy I wasn't playing football anymore. Kind of wondered about the band thing, but trusted in God and trusted in the people I was with, and it was, the band were people I grew up with and my best friends. So, that they went along with that, supported me there, and that was a fun ride too.
Before we get into the band, any regrets about your high school career? All 6 years of it?
Yeah, I know, 6 years of it. Any regrets? No, that maybe I wouldn't have, thought I was too cool for school or too cool sometimes. I tried to be nice to people, but every now and then, I'm sure there were people I felt I was better than and, not as nice to it, or could have stood up for some people who were getting picked on by other people. So those are my only regrets, I think. I certainly think I hung with the right group, and a lot of those are still lifetime relationships, like Fran's.
When you that first season after football, with no football, was it hard? Did you have some withdrawal? Was it hard to take the helmet and the pads off?
Yeah, for me, no. I've kind of been like that. When I move from something, I leave it. When I put it down, I put it down. I've enjoyed it, but I don't regret that I left it. It's that's kind of been throughout my life as well. When I've had different phases of my life, when I used to love snow skiing. But at one point I go, I'm done with I don't like it as much anymore. It's cold, and I've never missed not skiing anymore. In other aspects as well, when I'm done with it, I kind of go, all right, that chapter's finished. It's positioned me for this next chapter, and I've enjoyed it. Don't regret leaving it. Just enjoy the memories you have.
You basically played only football in high school, but you hung around at Memorial Pool all those years, and were the lifeguard. Makes you wonder, why weren't you a swimmer?
I hated swimming. I swam. I hated swimming. We've got a place in Panama, and that's where I am right now. And whenever we come here, I swim laps, and I still hate it. And I remember I joined the swim team in 9th grade, and for the first month did the swimming and the laps for hours, and I hated it. Then I decided, okay, I'm going to be a diver instead. So I kind of did that the first year, and when I finished it at Wrazin, I'm not swimming anymore. Then I think in 10th grade I was a wrestler, and wrestling was fun, but too much work. Then you're really trying to lose weight, and I didn't want to lose weight. And I basketball, ask Franz, I suck at basketball. I was the joke at basketball, playing behind Mo Pool. It was like, who's going to get stuck with C's? And I'd run around and I'd disrupt things, but I couldn't shoot. I could dribble a little bit. I was more just, the fly in the ointment whenever we played basketball. Baseball, I didn't like that much. It was okay at baseball. Football, I loved, and I was really good at it. Well, I thought I was really good at it. And I enjoyed it. And this may sound odd as well, but even with playing high school football, the most fun I've ever had playing football has been playing just with my buddies down at Pinewoods Park, the field there, we called it the pit, or playing 3-on-3 football in the street. Those are my best football memories ever, even with playing throughout high school. High school was great, but it's so disciplined, and there was more at stake. I enjoyed playing football with my friends, or with my boys when they're growing up, going down the field playing tag football with them and their friends. That, to me, is the sport.
You also were a musician and during high school, and to your credit, you have been credited, your band was the first punk band in the Buffalo area. Talk about the transitioning into the band and having fun doing that?
Well, as I mentioned, Jamie and I started bands when we were like 12 years old, over at Jamie Carlson's house. And we always had fun with it. And we were always formal but informal. We'd play high school dances and things like that. And we really enjoyed it. Jamie was an excellent guitarist. Self-taught. He could learn anything, play anything. He was so great. And we were great friends. And then when the band broke up, when he went off to Ohio to college, and when I met with him that one weekend, he goes, "I'm coming back," and so I'm starting a band, and he threw on a New York Dolls album and said, "This is what I'm gonna do. I'm doing stuff like this and Iggy Pop and Lou Reed," and so that stuff's a lot of fun. That could be I want to do that, and so yeah, we moved in, we did that, and it was like the discipline of football, the sport, just applied it to music, and we worked hard, and the musicians in the band were great. Doug, our drummer, Brian McKnight was their drummer at one point, Randy Prexta, their bass player, and they were great musicians, so it made it easy for me. And I certainly don't have the best voice, but I could take my ADD and all my energy and move around a lot, and people didn't concentrate on my voice as much as they did on my antics on stage. So that worked for me, and we had a lot of fun. So that was great, and it's funny, it got bigger in a way than Jamie wanted it to, because it eventually got pretty serious, where we had different potential obligations. We were opening for the Ramones, the Romantics. The Romantics wanted us to tour with them, do the whole East Coast tour, go to New York, CBGBs, do all that. And then Jamie said, I don't know if I really want that. It was kind of like my football change of heart type thing. That this is going to be a lot different than staying at home and just doing local stuff. This is going to be a lifestyle. Do I want that lifestyle? So at that point, Jamie left the band for a couple months. He said, "I don't think I want to do this." I was getting too big for my britches. My wonderful wife, Bonnie, we've been married 43 years this year, together 52 years. And we had been dating 6 years. We broke up, because, I was too cool for school. So, and that taught me a big lesson. We broke up. So you got to piss somebody off a lot for them to say, "Where can I go to be the furthest away from you I can ever be?" So she moved to California. And I gave it about a month and thought, I think ultimately, where do I want to be in 10 years? What do I want to be in 30 years? Where do I want my life to be? What do I want my legacy? What do I want? And it's not being in a rock band or being a football player. It's I want a solid relationship with a wonderful woman, a wonderful family. I want to have what my mom and dad had. I want to be a kind person whose most important things to him is my family and God. And I had that revelation and decided, okay, guys, I'm quitting the band. And the band broke up, and I moved to California, and that's what happened then. And never looked back.
Then you got into an interesting business. Not many people have that, where you're in film location. Become a film location agent, and you start this wonderful company called Universal Locations. And your first couple gigs was securing a property for Flashdance and Beverly Hills Cop. And the story is you were going door to door trying to pitch these homeowners on renting out their place to a film company. Nobody does this. I mean, you're unique, or very few people do this, I should say.
There were two companies that had been in business for a very short period of time out in LA doing that. And at the time when I came out to LA, I got my real estate license, and I was a little struggling on that, and you had to work weekends, and I didn't like working with the general public, and they were kind of flaky, and you know, somebody told me about this business being a location agent. And I thought, that sounds kind of interesting. I can work during the week. I can set my own hours. And so I gave it a shot, and I kind of learned what they were doing. I, like you say, I went door to door, knocking on doors, leaving notes, asking if people wanted to use their home on a commercial or a TV show. And the response was, 1 out of 10 would say yes. And so they photographed the house, set up a library, then started approaching production companies and showing their location team what locations we had when they were looking for things. They pick locations and we negotiate the deal, manage the property, and basically leasing agents for homes in films. And after about 6 months, Bonnie was a head nurse at the time. And I said, Bonnie, you got to quit. I'm getting too busy. I can't do this by myself. So she quit nursing. We worked together for a couple of years till we had our first daughter, Alexis. And I, hired somebody, and within about 9 months, the company just kind of exploded, and it's just grown and grown and grown. I've had about 9 or 10 employees at one point, and I found it works better with 3 or 4. There's more profit, and everybody gets along. It's a lot easier. So right now, there's a woman named Leslie who's been with me for 27 years. She's wonderful. She's our right-hand girl. She does everything. She's an amazing booker, and she knows the business inside out now. And then our 2 boys, Keenan and Shane, 35 and 33, they've been with us about 10 years now, and they're taking over the business. And eventually, when I get out of it, they'll be running it. They're doing most of the running now, but I have too much ADD to sit and do nothing. So, but yes, it's taken off. We work with all the major TV shows, most of the Netflix shows. If it's shot in Los Angeles, generally we've worked on those shows. A lot of feature films, tons of commercials. I think last year we had 4 Super Bowl commercials. God's been very, very good to us. The business just keeps growing and growing, and the pressure doesn't. And now there's probably 40 companies doing what we're doing, but we've been doing it for 42 years now. So we're pretty ingrained in it as one of the best companies. Got history.
You've had tremendous success with that. Want to get back to just ask you this question. What did you take forward from what did you take forward as lessons from your father that maybe you applied to your adult life and business?
Oh, it's funny. I would have brought my little sheet. Gosh, I'll get back to you on this one. You can even publish it or something. I should know them by heart, but I don't. It's those rules to live by, and some of them were, it was treat everyone with kindness. Especially, in his business, he would say, find the janitors and the lunch ladies and treat them like they run the place, because they do. Be very kind to people. No matter how bad anything gets, someday you're going to laugh about it. Don't make it too serious. You'll get through it. Have fun in life. Spend time with your family. Be a kind, good person. Help others. I've got a great story I have to share, and it always gets me choked up about my father. And this kind of sums up my father and what I try to gain from him and take from him. He started working at Mohr when I think he was 23, and then became assistant director, and he ran the pools during the summer. And Franz and I would always go get them ready for the summer season. We'd get them ready, and it was great because prior to that, come June, I wouldn't see my father a lot because for 3 weeks he had to shape up the pools, get them repainted and everything. But when I started working the pool, he said, all right, now it's your turn. This is what needs to be done. Here's my list. You and Franz, and you pick the other guys, that work at the pool. You take your team, You work for a month of June, get the pool ready. Do it however you want. You can work an hour a day, but come June, come July 1st when that pool opens, everything's got to be done. You're going to work as much as you want. You get paid all day. You can screw around, whatever, but get it done. So, I was there, and we always do things. But the story of my dad, he was always at the pool during the summers when I was growing up. And I heard this story that was told to my mother by a woman. Excuse me. This woman said, when I was a little girl, I went to the pools with my girlfriends. When we all went, we were all excited. It was really hot. And we came up to the girls' locker room, and we went to go in. There's a lifeguard up there checking our feet. Did you take a shower? And all the girls got in, and he looked at me and said, you can't go swimming. You got athlete's feet. And I was so disappointed. So they're all swimming. I was on the spectator railing, and the girls were running and jumping and running over. We were all laughing. And your father, or your husband, Phil, came over and said, what are you doing over here? Why aren't you in the pool? And she said, well, I can't go in. The lifeguard, I've got athlete feet. They said I can't go in. He goes, come with me. He took her down to the back of the pool. He got a tub of water, some soap. He washed her feet, put some ointment on her feet. And he said, you go back upstairs and you tell the lifeguard that Mr. Siezega said you can go swimming. And it was something she remembered forever, and made it a point to seek my mother out after my father had passed away to tell her that story about the grace of my father. And that's what I've taken away from growing up with Phil Siezega. Be graceful, be humble. You're not the most important person in the room. Help others. You can be the most helpful. Put others before yourself. And he would constantly do that. And no matter how bad it gets, don't speak, don't gossip about people. Don't talk about people behind their back. Don't say bad things about people. And we all have our bad moments. Let's be judged by, and not by our worst, but what we've done when we've been given a second chance. And that was my dad.
This year marks 100 years of your dad's birthday. Will you be 100 this year? 1998, you went into the North Tonawanda Football Hall of Fame. Your father went in 1967. What did that mean to you, or what does it mean to you today?
It's really, really special that I was able to do that in a way for him. I've got a couple boys now and a daughter, and I know how proud I am of them and everything they do. So to be able to stand there with my father at the ceremony, I know how great that made him feel and how proud he was. And in fact, I have a photograph of he and I at the ceremony. It's on my workshop in my garage. That every time it's right by the door as I walk in the house, so I get to see that every day. The picture of he and I standing there at the induction ceremony. But yeah, it was a real special moment because he is a real special man, and if I can be a fraction of what he was, then I feel like I've accomplished something.
Do you ever have days where things might not be going right, and you say, "What would Phil say?"
Oh, I have those all the time. And actually, it's funny. He passed away in 2020, 2 days ago. But what I do, it's funny. He was quite the handyman. I mean, he could fix anything, and he could do it all. And whenever I get into a tough project, or I know I'm going to be fixing a toilet or something that has the potential of going really bad, I kind of look and I ask God for a prayer, and then I ask Phil for a prayer too. I go, work with me, give me the right tools, just guide me through this, and let's do this job together, because I know you know how to do it, but I might screw it up. So I often am talking to my dad about different things in life.
You have 3 children. What do they know of your past accomplishments and growing up and growing up in the Buffalo area?
we took them back for about 23 years at Christmas, so they know Buffalo well. And then when they were young, they kept saying, "Well, why don't we live here? It's so beautiful. The snow is so great." And then when they got into their 20s and we were taking them back, it was like, "When are we going back home?" They know the roots that are back there because they've got different cousins from back there. My cousins' children they consider their cousins because we'd always get together at Christmas at the Third Ward Club. We'd have our Christmas party, so they love it back east, and they understand the values of what goes on back there, and they understand the family that is connected back there. So they were very fortunate to see all that and spend a lot of time with my mom and dad back in Buffalo.
We've talked about a lot of different things right today. What would you like to talk about that I haven't brought up?
That's tough. But I didn't prepare properly. I don't have an answer to that question, and I'm putting the pressure back on you, Ed.
That's fine. You got the girl, you got the family, you got the business. What's left for Mark Siezega?
I'm just enjoying my grandchildren, enjoying my wife, enjoying my kids. Our middle son just got married. I've got 3 grandkids. My daughter is married to a wonderful man, a wonderful family. Keenan isn't married yet, but he's with a wonderful girl. Hopefully they'll get married. What's in it for me is spending more time with family, helping other people. I was fortunate enough to really reconnect with God about 14 years ago, and that's changed my life. I always believed in God, but I never really focused on God. And about 13, 14 years ago, I found a great church, taught me about Christ, so they understood it, and understood Christ, and it's really changed my life to serve people and help people. And that's what I want to do more, and that's what I try to do more, is be kinder, more generous, less quick to speak, and faster to listen, find the good parts in people, forgive. I like to talk to people about forgiveness. That's what's in store for me, trying to make the world a more Christ-like place. Not everybody likes to hear that, but that's where my life is. Bonnie and I serve a lot of church, and we recognize the blessings that we have, that we've been giving through our family, through God, and the families we've had, the relationships, the Frankie Burkes. That man, changed my life. He and my father, they both touched so many young men's lives in North Tonawanda through the years. Through Frankie, the coaching and managing the pool, and my father through teaching and managing the pool, and he's just around young men and young ladies and really helped them to grow, and was kind to them. And that's what I want to do, and I want to help.
One final question. In North Tonawanda history and North Tonawanda athletics history, how should Phil and Mark Siezega be remembered by?
I would say, certainly Phil, was a better community man than I. He born, lived, and died there. He gave to that community. I mean, he sacrificed for that community. I mean, he sacrificed his health for that community. I have no doubt that pool chemicals, played a part in the eventual cancers he got from all, unmonitored chemicals and things. He was around. But he always gave to the community. And I'd like him to be remembered that way, and I think he is. Myself, unfortunately, I didn't. I got out and I didn't give as much to the community as I should have. So now I just want to be remembered, hopefully as someone who's humble and looking out for other people, and and hopefully I can lead people to God. I go back to that. You ask me what my purpose is in life now. It really is trying to bring people to God. That's different than this whole interview, but that's where my life is at this point because I've been so blessed. And I can't say enough about Frankie Burke, and I can't say enough about my father, and how they affected me and touched others' lives.
Mark Siezega, I want to thank you so much for joining me here today. I know it's been kind of elusive trying to get you to pin you down to do something like this, and I appreciate that very, very much. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and hopefully the people who watch this and listen to this will enjoy it as well. I'm sure they will. And for the young people coming up in the North Tonawanda system, they've got something to shoot for and see where history came and where things shook out and how we all grew up back in the 1970s and moving forward. Mark, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun.
You're welcome. One last thing is for the young people. The sports don't have to be that serious. Now everybody's looking, for the professional sports career, or just it doesn't have to be that serious. It should be fun, and remember it as being fun. You'll have much better memories, I think, of it when you treat it as fun. But thank you, Ed. Thank you all, and thank you for the Hall for inducting me and my father and all the other great football players. Say hi to Stanley.
Mark, thanks so much. Be well.
Thank you, Ed.